this represents a new approach and a success in a new way to deal with environmental decision-making in the United States. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone who has made the reintroduction of the Owyhee Initiative legislation, which has as its new bill number S2833, the Owyhee Public Lands Management Act of 2008, possible for their extremely hard work under very, very severe pressures. Most of all, I want to note how hard our local work group, including the Shoshone-Paiute tribes, the ranchers, the conservationists, the recreationists, our local and state government, and many others have worked to make this day possible. Everyone I've mentioned has a lot at stake, and they have put their shoulders to this task. And I want everyone to understand that we are not done yet. It was essential that this bill be introduced now in order for us to schedule a hearing for the bill in the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Subcommittee on Public Lands and Forests. And without this hearing, we wouldn't be able to move the Owyhee Initiative legislation forward as quickly as we need to.
I agreed totally Tuesday night with the recommendation of the committee staff, majority committee staff, that the bill be introduced so that we could secure a hearing and then continue our talks on the language. Senator Crapo did that, and I think everybody in Owyhee County ought to be thankful to him for his efforts. And Senator Craig's. I met with Senator Craig today, and he and his staff are going to do everything they can to help Senator Crapo get the bill to be successful, and they committed to that. And with that, I just think that the 8 years finally are worth it, Senator.
The Owyhee Public Land Management Act of 2008 is the result, as Senator Craig has indicated, of almost a decade of collaborative effort between all levels of government, the tribes, ranchers, users of the public lands, and conservationists to resolve decades of heated land use conflict in the Owyhee Canyon lands in the southwestern part of my home state, Idaho. Owyhee County contains some of the most unique and beautiful canyon lands in the world, a place that offers the grandeur of untouched western trails, rivers, and open sky. It's imperative that its natural beauty and its traditional uses are preserved for future generations. Community expansion, development, and ever-increasing demands on public land are having a profound effect on Owyhee County. Given this confluence of circumstances, the county has been at the center of political and regulatory battles for years. Diverse land uses coexist in an area of intense beauty and unique character. The conflict over land management is both inevitable and understandable. How do we manage for this diversity and do so in a way that protects and restores the quality of that fragile environment? In this context, the Owyhee County Commissioners and several others said enough is enough, and they decided to focus efforts on solving these problems rather than wasting resources on an endless fight. And in 2001, the Owyhee County Commissioners met with me and asked for my help. Make no mistake, this has been very difficult work, but the fruit of that labor, the Owyhee Public Land Management Act of 2008, has made it time well spent.
The Owyhee Initiative has made great progress here in the Senate, just as it has on the ground in Idaho. But we still have a lot to accomplish. We must continue to work hard to secure the necessary funding to implement the language in the initiative, and we must prepare to implement the agreements in the legislation once they become law. We have to remain vigilant to assure that the objectives of the Owyhee Initiative agreement will be achieved.
Thank you very much. Mr. President, I'm pleased to speak today on behalf of S-22, the Omnibus Public Lands Management Act. To call this legislation bipartisan is an understatement. This bill, as has been mentioned, contains over 150 individual provisions sponsored by almost 50 different members of this chamber, nearly half of them. It represents every region of the country and has an almost equal number of bills from each side of the aisle. It will provide significant protection to existing public lands, improve recreation, cultural and historic opportunities, and provide important economic benefits for rural economies, such as in my home state of Idaho. Every bill in the package has gone through regular order. Most have had multiple hearings and markups in the Energy Committee. All are fully supported by the committee chairman and the ranking member. In fact, many of the provisions, such as my top legislative priority, the Owyhee Initiative, are the product of years of extensive collaboration at the federal, state, and county and local levels, in conjunction with elected officials, tribes such as the Shopai in Idaho, businesses, community leaders, outdoor enthusiasts, conservationists, ranchers, landowners, and other stakeholders. Additionally, the package does not contain any bills that have a CDL score without an offset. This is not to say that the legislation is without controversy or that it's unanimously supported. Few pieces of legislation that pass through this chamber are. However, while any omnibus package by nature will contain elements that are troubling to some, the Energy Committee has carefully negotiated the inclusion of each bill in this package to successfully reach a compromise on which all sides could agree. As with my Owyhee wilderness legislation, not everyone got exactly what they wanted, but the broad array of collaborators achieved enough of their objectives to support the whole package and get behind legislation that offers significant improvement to land management practices and a reduction in decades-old conflicts. Similarly, this omnibus lands bill has broad support in every region of the country. As a result, on balance, this omnibus lands bill is widely supported and represents a diverse group of interests from every region. Recognizing this, I strongly urge my colleagues to vote on cloture in favor of cloture so that we can pass this legislation and move forward.
Now, Mr. President, some are attacking the bill by saying it's a huge omnibus bill. It contains over 150 separate individual pieces of legislation, and that because it is so large, that's a reason to oppose it. Frankly, I'm one of those in this Senate who doesn't like the notion of taking smaller pieces of legislation in general and packaging them into large omnibus bills without allowing those bills to go through orderly process and without allowing the committee process and the amendment process on the floor to fully work. This is not the first time this legislation has seen the floor of the Senate, however. As I said earlier, it's already passed the floor essentially in the same format as the senator from New Mexico's proposed amendment as S-22. And it's been on the floor previously in essentially its same shape, in which we've debated it multiple times. And as I've said, the individual pieces of this legislation have moved through the Energy Committee and have been approved by the Energy Committee as its process was followed. It has historically been the way that the Energy Committee approaches public lands legislation to put them into large groups. Now, why? As I said, there are 150 pieces in this particular bill. And previous to this bill, there was another one which I believe had somewhere over 70 different pieces. And I'll bet you that the Energy Committee today has another 50 or 70 or 100 pieces of legislation in it waiting for consideration. If every single one of them moved individually on the floor of the Senate, we would have little time on the floor for any other type of business. It's become a working procedure that these bills are grouped together and moved in one unit as we work among ourselves with regard to land management issues in our respective states so that we can move forward. Well, this is a great day, but frankly, the credit needs to go to the work group who stuck with this for 8 years. Idaho has a tremendous new heritage with the Owyhee Initiative now being in place. And I just give my thanks to those who worked their hearts out for the last 8 years to make sure that we have built a better Idaho. The work is not done. We expect this bill to go to the President's desk soon, and we expect him to sign it. Once it becomes law, then we will need to implement it, and there's still a lot of work to make sure this gets implemented, to protect all the private property rights and make sure that the grazing interests are properly handled, make sure that the implementation of all of the different pieces of this comprehensive land management package are put together. And I've already talked to the Secretary of Interior and his Chief of Staff. They're prepared for this bill, they're waiting for it with open arms, and we will work with them as well as all the work group to make sure that the implementation stage goes on expeditiously and smoothly. Well, first of all, this is a great day for Idaho. You know, we have been working with this collaborative process for 8 long years, and although it required a tremendous amount of patience, the fact is we've made it over the finish line and the President has now signed the bill into law. This shows that collaboration can work, because the reason it took 8 years to get here is that we literally worked stream by stream and trail by trail and parcel by parcel to evaluate how to best manage and protect these lands while still preserving the cultural heritage and the multiple use opportunities for the people who live there. And literally everyone is better off under this legislation than they are under the status quo. I think this is going to become a model for how we approach environmental and land management decision making in the country.
It's a beautiful, beautiful day in the city of Washington and a beautiful day in Owyhee County. I just can't imagine a more serious and really important ceremony as the President and Secretary Salazar made their presentations, because that's what they talked about is resolution of conflicts that's going to help the economy in the West and preserve that all of us want preserved. I thought it was a wonderful ceremony.
Our part with our tribe, we've been working hard with Senator Crapo and his staff, and also with the Owyhee commissioners, and I think without that collaboration and the patience, the trust, and overall, I think everything worked out fine today. I mean, this is long overdue, but I think it's for the protection of our natural resources as a whole, and I think this is bringing us a step closer, but I really look forward to working with each and every one in the future here.
Well, I think there's a bunch of collaboration that happened at all different levels. One was in just our community. The conservation community had a lot of people working together, doing a really good job. And then what is a true collaboration, though, is when you can bring in the folks that are viewed as your adversaries and sit down at the table. And in the case of the Owyhee Initiative, there were some real hard-working people that spent 8 years literally sitting down. Craig Yerke, Fred Grant, who were co-chairs of this effort, really deserve extraordinary credit for bringing this to the President's desk.
I don't call this a wilderness bill. I call it a comprehensive land management bill, because it deals not just with designation of wilderness and wild and scenic rivers, but it protects private property ownership, and it preserves ranching, and it protects the opportunity for hunting and fishing, and creates a travel management plan for off-road vehicle use. And the list goes on. It protects the tribe's cultural heritage. It protects the Air Force training range, and all of the different kinds of uses to which we put this special land. That's why I call it a comprehensive land management bill, and why I believe this model of decision making is going to be one that can be very, very helpful in the future across the country.